The most visited museum in the world failing to open due to a spontaneous strike by the Louvre staff, warning that the home of the Mona Lisa is buckling under the weight of mass tourism.
So in some of these major tourist hotspots, the locals that live there are becoming quite fed up with the influx of tourists, which has certainly increased since COVID. People are really getting out and trying to see these really popular locations. But for the tourists, what it means is rising prices, and also makes it difficult for housing, access to housing, because of short-term rentals like Airbnb can get a lot more money out of tourists. And you probably know, if you've been to some of these real big hotspots, it's not cheap. So as much as tourists get annoyed with that sort of thing, it's even more painful for the locals.
We are here because we are fed up that tourism is always on top of this economic model.
So on June 15, we saw these massive protests, these anti-tourist protests in really popular destinations across Italy, Portugal, Spain. They were getting out there with their signs, their loudspeakers. They had stickers in Barcelona that said "tourists go home," basically, that they were sticking on shop fronts. They taped up the entrance of a popular youth hostel. There were flares, smoke bombs, water guns. The water guns get particularly a lot of attention in Barcelona. This is at least the second time we've seen protesters with water guns firing at tourists that have made headlines this year. And that's exactly why they do it, because they want people talking about the fact that they don't want tourists there. The thought is that tourism is not going to be stopped altogether. The tourism numbers in a lot of these places are just increasing. The conversation is around responsible destination management. And that's why cities across the world that are hotspots for tourists have introduced things like tourist taxes or fees, because I suppose they're trying to increase the funds they have for improving infrastructure to handle these huge numbers of tourists. Some of the protesters you will see, though, they've just had enough and they want tourists to go home altogether. There's others that will say that they're not targeting the tourists, they just want the places where they live marketed differently, and they want tourism handled differently there. So I think it really depends who you ask what they want the end result to be.
Yo creo que simplemente hay que pararlo, o sea, está creciendo demasiado. Hasta cierto punto estaba bien el turismo, pero ahora nos está dejando sin casas, sin nuestros lugares en la calle, y eso hay que pararlo.
We need responsible tourism, not mass tourism, but tourism that respects health, respects labor, respects dignity, and respects all of us who work in the tourism sector, because what mass tourism brings us is poverty. We don't benefit from this kind of tourism.
We are spending half of our wage in rent. In the last 10 years, the rental price has doubled, and this means that we work 8 hours a day, and 4 hours a day we just work for our landlord. This must stop. We have tried to convince politicians to take severe measures. They're not doing it.
Queremos sí una economía que pueda traer prosperidad a la ciudad y beneficiar a los vecinos, y esa economía no es el turismo, lo sabemos porque llevamos años así, y lo único que estamos consiguiendo es más precarización, más pobreza y que la gente se esté yendo de la ciudad.
These protests are not a new thing. We've seen them in other areas. These particular places that got involved on June 15, they're kind of the major destinations that people go to in Europe, and particularly this time of year in the summer, so it was the time to do it. It's like peak season. Japan is another one that's really struggling with the influx of tourists. It's a tricky one because they're also really happy about it at the same time, because a lot of these economies, a lot of these major tourist destinations, the cities rely on tourism. It contributes a lot to the economy, but at the same time, then the locals are really struggling with it. So for example, in Kyoto, they're really struggling with the amount of tourists that are coming to visit.
市バスとかを利用しようと思った時に、バスは全員観光客の方が乗っているので乗れないというか、もう何年も乗ってない。電車で結構大荷物の人が 大きいスペース取ってたりとか、夜中に結構観光客の方が騒いでたりとかもするので、そこは結構困ってるというか、
歩きにくいっていうところですよね。ちょっと大変です。そうで、一応部分的に集中することが多いので、もう少し分散するようにすればいいのかな。
So some cities are actually taking drastic action. In Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, for example, they're banning new hotels from being built. And the other things they might do is limit the amount of tourists that can go to particular sites, or even Venice is charging tourists to enter Venice for the day, these day trippers. Then there's things like tourist taxes that you might pay on top of what you pay for your hotel, and then that goes towards this funding that they get for having tourists to try and then be able to handle the number of tourists. And Barcelona, the city itself, has actually from 2028, they're going to ban short-term holiday rental properties. So they are taking action. People just don't feel like it's enough.
This will allow us to put 10,000 apartments on the market for sale or rent. It will restore their residential use that they never should have lost.
There's definitely a push for Australians to think about how they travel and to be more respectful tourists at these destinations. So considering not going at peak time, so you're not joining those massive crowds. Also making sure they spend local. Like if you're going to go into these places, put your money into the destinations. Traveling with smaller groups is a big one. There's even cities that have put limits on the size of tour groups because it does make such a difference.
Please travel, but just watch how you travel. The way you travel, just be slightly more conscious of the host community. It's to have respect, much more respect. You are a guest. You're not entitled to this. You're a guest.